All right, well, let's go on ahead and get things kicked off. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Mancuso, and I lead communication and outreach efforts for the Summer Health Professions Education Program, better known as SHPEP. Tonight's session, Steps to Success with the SHPEP application, should be your first of many steps on your path into the health professions. As you will soon learn, SHPEP scholars have a legacy of success. Over 65% of our scholars that apply to medical and dental school are accepted, and over 78% of our scholars go on to earn advanced degrees. But what is SHPEP? Well, it's a free 6-week summer enrichment program for college freshmen, sophomore, and now juniors who are interested in the health professions. And our program is truly committed to strengthening the career development of historically marginalized communities and those that come from educationally and economically disadvantaged backgrounds while preparing them for a successful career in the health professions. Well, as far as our program and the tracks that we offer, talked a lot about interprofessionalism, right? So students can gain experience in medicine, dentistry, nursing, optometry, pharmacy, physical therapy, and public health, and they can gain this experience at any one of our program sites listed here on the screen. I'm not going to read them all out to you, but I do want to highlight that Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and Western University of Health Sciences are accepting juniors for this application cycle. So their curriculum is going to more so focus on sophomore, junior students as they springboard into the application process, and the other ones are going to focus more so on the freshman, sophomore students. So sophomores are eligible to apply to each of the program sites. Freshmen will unfortunately won't be able to apply to Rutgers and Western because we're piloting at that this year. But the other program sites they'll be able to apply to. Now, I also want to talk about the Minority Serving Institution Pathway Initiative, which is ultimately an AAMC funded initiative that's integrated into the SHPEP application process. With one application this year, you can apply to both SHPEP and MSIPI sites, selecting up to 3 locations across both programs. We're going to be hosting a webinar on December 18th to go over the unique experiences that are going to take place at Albany State University and Portland State University. But the major differences between MSIPI and SHPEP are that MSIPI is going to offer a strictly medicine track, and their program experience is 5 weeks instead of 6 weeks. As far as the benefits for both programs, each student is going to receive housing, meals, a stipend of $1,000, and travel assistance. But they'll receive guidance as well from current admissions deans, health professionals, students in health professions programs, and their peers about how to pursue their profession of interest. To be eligible for the program, students must be a high school graduate and currently enrolled as a freshman, sophomore, and this year a junior. Have a minimum overall college GPA of 2.5, be a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or been granted DACA status by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. And last but not least, they cannot have participated in the program previously. And that includes if you're an SHPEP alum, that means you can not apply to MSIPI sites because it's all integrated into the application. Now, the reason for that, we want to give other students the opportunity to have this experience that can be pivotal for them to be successful on their journey. Now, of course, there are other factors for consideration as well, and they include that a student come from an educationally or economically disadvantaged background, or they've demonstrated an interest in issues that affect underserved populations. Now, I also want to add in submitting a compelling personal statement and a strong letter of recommendation makes a ton of the world, right? A ton of difference because ultimately our program sites engage in what's called holistic review, which means we're looking at more than just the GPA number. We want to know your distance traveled. We want to know how you are able to, why you're interested in a health professions career or why you're interested in exploring it as well. I like to say that that MSIPI and SHPEP gives you the opportunity to explore these different health professions and help you solidify why medicine or why dentistry, or maybe expose you to different health profession tracks as well. I do want to add that the Telecom Summer Health Experience at Portland State University, in addition to the requirements here, they require applicants to be citizens or descendants of a federally recognized American Indian or Alaska Native tribe. Now, as far as the activities, during the program, students will gain academic enrichment in the basic sciences and math, participate in career development activities such as developing your CV, your resume, or even mock interviewing. So when you get to the point of applying to medical school or dental school, you're able to have that skill set in order to be successful. Learning and study skills workshops, which will help you maximize working in individual and group settings. Exposure to clinical settings, which is what's needed to matriculate into a health professions program. Workshops in financial planning and health policy, and IPE, interprofessional education, that addresses the effective collaboration across the health professions. Essentially, you get to learn how the physician works with the pharmacist and how it all comes together. I'll now turn it over to my colleague, Stephanie Vink, who will give us a deep dive into the application. Stephanie, feel free to take it away.
Thank you, Tony. Just to let there's like kind of a delay on my end, so hopefully it will push through, but so far it's been good. So yes, thank you for showing us that awesome video. 35 years that SHPEP has been in existence. It's always cool to see where we started, where we came. But before we jump into application, I always like to highlight our website, or in websites now, since we have the MSIPI program. You definitely want to take a look at this, see what sites offer different health professions. If you want to check out if it's a hybrid or residential. On the right hand, we have SHPEP. The filtering option is very, very useful, so you can figure out, what you're looking for. And then of course it has their site info, the start and end date, which you definitely want to know before you start applying to these sites, and make sure you can actually go. And anything you may need to know about the experience. And there's also their contact information on there, so you can ask like site related questions too. And then of course with the MSIPI site, we have a website for that. You can check out those site pages and see exactly when their start and end date. And both of these links are on the application landing page as well. Next slide, please. So let's jump into the application now. So you are allowed to apply to 3 program sites, which we definitely highly recommend, the maximum, and you submit 1 application only. We require an official transcript from every US, Canadian post-secondary institution that you attended or are attending. And then, of course, you get 1 recommendation letter. And this can come from a pre-health advisor, college professor. But we do understand that, especially our freshman applicants, that you may not be close to anyone yet. It's still pretty early in your semester. So you can look to a high school science math teacher, or science or math teacher, or a guidance counselor, or even a graduate assistant that you might, in the math or science course, that you might feel would be a good person to write your letter. You just want to pick somebody that can speak to your abilities as an applicant. And once you have a submitted application and your transcript or transcripts and a recommendation letter, your application is actually complete at that time. And that is actually when the sites can review it. It doesn't go anywhere until all 3 things happen. Next slide, please. And I apologize, there's a little delay on my end, so let's take. All right. So questions we might get is, do we have to do something, a particular order with the application? And the answer is no. You can submit your transcripts in now if they're ready to go. You can have the letter filled out and uploaded by your recommender. The only thing we ask is that you please have these sections of the application filled out. For example, if you send in your transcript right now and you don't have that section filled out, we won't actually apply it to your application until it's filled out, because there's a lot of information we don't know. For example, your start and end date in that institution, etc. So if you're not going to submit your application first, that's fine. Just make sure you have all the sections filled out. Next. So how do you send in your official transcripts? we do require that it comes from your institution or their transcript service. Some of them use like parchment or anything like that. That's fine. It needs to be issued to us, and you can submit it two ways, either via the email, which we definitely recommend more than mailing. It's fine if you mail it. It's just we don't go in the office as much as we used to anymore. So it will just take a little bit longer to process that. But either way is fine. And of course, all transcripts must be postmarked or timestamped by February 5th. Next. All right, so once again, we do require that official transcripts cannot be forwarded or emailed in or even mailed in by you, the applicant. It needs to be issued to us from your institution or their service. Another thing I wanted to point out is we only accept one copy of the transcript. So example, if you're a freshman or junior, you can send them in now if you'd like, that's fine. And your fall grades might be pending still, which you can do that, but what you cannot do is like come January 15th, say, let's say, submit an updated one because it has your fall grades. You need to make the decision if you want to send them in now or you can send them in later. It's up to you guys. Now, freshmen, you do have to wait until your fall grades are posted. I've already received blank transcripts already, and I had to tell them like, hey, sorry, there's no grades here, right? Because they don't have a previous semester to look at. The sites do need at least one full semester of grades to review. So again, if you're a freshman, I think most people's grades will probably be ready within a week and a half or so. So definitely request it after that. Next slide. So letters of recommendation, those can be submitted in two formats. We have a form that a recommender can fill out and sign. And then we also have, they also could send it on a regular letter, but it just needs to be on a institution letterhead. They don't have to do both. Sometimes I see both, that's fine too. But it could be one or the other. And how they submit it, you will have to fill out their information on your application, and it'll be automatically sent. And I actually have screenshots of what it looks like. So I'll have Tony switch to the next slide. All right, so this is what it actually looks like on your application for those of you who haven't made it this far. So once you get to the schools and activity page, you're gonna hit add request, and this screen will pop up. And as you can see, you can type in the first and last name of your letter writer, and then of course their email. And then you would hit continue. Next slide, please. Then you'll be directed to this page, which is going to give you an email preview of what the actual request is going to look like to your recommender. Now, you cannot edit this preview. It's just going to give a little information about the program, both programs here. And you're going to check the box at the bottom, making sure you know that it's getting sent out, and you're going to hit send request. And then next slide, please. So then you're going to get a confirmation that the email was sent, and then you'll click done. And so after this step, you can hit the next slide, Tony. But after this step, you still want to follow up with your recommender just to make sure that they got it. We don't have a bounce back system in place yet, so we always just recommend make sure, hey, you got it. And another reason you might want to check in with them is it's not going to say SHPEP or MSI or MSIPI in the email header. It will say AMC letter writer. So that's something they can look forward to getting and receiving. So follow up with them, make sure they got the request, kind of give them a reminder of the deadline. Remember, we only take one. So if you select a recommender, that gets sent and they do it right away, that's your letter. You can't come back and say, you know what, I want to use this guy now after a letter has been uploaded for you. If, let's say, you put in a letter writer, the email gets sent, and then they say, hey, I can't do it for you, or they you decide to change it and we have not received it, then you can update your letter writer. You can do this before you submit your application. You would just fill that out again. Or if you have submitted your application, I'll show you where it is where you can do that, but you can update the letter again there, the letter writer there. And reminder, that's if the first person had not completed it for you. Next slide. So let's touch up on the personal statement. As Tony mentioned before, this is very, very, very important. It's probably the most important part of the application, in my opinion. But because this is where you get to show yourself and capture anything that the other parts of the application did not, capture you for. You want to talk about your background, your interests, your experiences that influence your decision to pursue a career in healthcare. What else can you share? Talk about maybe healthcare disparities, whatever brought you to this point. You want to make sure you shine in this section. And they are red. All of them are red. Next slide. Some other personal statement tips we have, definitely check for your grammar, spelling, have someone review it as well. Express your authentic self, of course, yourself. We do recommend that you write it out, step away for a few days, and then come back for final edits. And then the last point is if you're applying to multiple health profession tracks. So let's say you're doing dental at Columbia, dental at Western, and then medicine at Rutgers, for example. You want to make sure you speak to both of those health professions in your personal statement. That way, if the medical reviewer is reviewing it, they understand that you're interested in both. And then, of course, the dental will see this too. Next statement, or next slide. So we have a robust timeline with these and important dates. The application deadline is February 5th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. Please remember it's in Eastern time. If you're on the East Coast, you're good, but remember that if you log in on the 5th at 11 p.m. West Coast time, like if you're in California, say the application will be closed already. So make sure you note that it's an Eastern deadline. The documents can be a February 5th postmark or timestamp deadline though. So that means, like, let's say you order your transcripts on February 5th, 11 p.m. In California time, that's fine. As long as it had that timestamp or postmarked by the deadline. Decisions will release March 15th, 2025. And I'll show you where you can see that in your application later. Program sites will start accepting from their waitlist on March 19th, if space permits. So if you're waitlisted, you'll have to keep checking the status after starting March 19th to see if you were accepted or not accepted. Until then, you have to keep checking each day. Some sites will send an email out to let you know that you've been accepted, but definitely just want to keep checking until you see an update on that. And you have 24 hours to confirm those acceptances for the waitlist. After that, the program, if you are confirmed, the program coordinators will be in touch with you at the end of March for the next steps of the program. Next slide. So let's jump into the application again. This was what a submitted application will look like on your dashboard. Now there is a difference between submitted and completed. So if it's submitted, you'll see that it says submitted, of course. And then you'll see this little pink box pop up saying, it's not complete. So you're going to click on the view details section. So if you'll see that on the next slide. So once you click that view details section, on the right hand, you'll see what it will look like, and you'll be like, I know why it's not complete. my letter writer has not submitted my letter. Also, as I mentioned earlier, let's say that Cindy Wells, this letter writer right here in this example, can't do it. That action button with the little pencil right there, that's where you can go to update your request to change your letter writer there. You'll get pushed back right up to the letter writer request screen again. So with this will also, you can also see, what you have, what you don't, what you're missing, and what could still be in the processing status. So whenever we receive a transcript, for example, if we'll mark it processing, this does not mean that it's on your account. You will receive an email with directions to monitor your account until that status changes to receive. If you don't see it changed from processing to receive within 10 business days, it's usually faster than that. You just kind of give us like a little buffer. Contact us immediately, because that means an error could have happened and we want to correct it. Once you see that it's changed to received on both the transcript section and the letter recommendation section, your application is complete. And you do receive an email once it's complete and sent over to the sites. Next slide. Here's just a review of what the status of the application materials are again. Of course, I talked about everything except for the unofficial. You could see an unofficial, that would be pretty much with the transcripts if you sent in one's issued to you. Some people like to send in a screenshot of unofficial, so just make sure that they come from your registrar or their transcript service is issued to us, and you will never see that unofficial. Next slide. So the screens I just showed you, that's actually the view of a submitted application. If you haven't submitted your application and you want to check in to see, where you're at, if we have it, or even where it is in line of like if it's waiting to be processed, you can give us a call or email us to see if you received it. If we have it, but and you can't view that status yet until you submit. Next. So this is the view of a completed application. This is the landing page when you log in. It's green and it says completed. So this is what you want. This is ready to go to the sites. Next slide. Of course, this is the view details section, and I bring us back here because, as you can see, it says completed. Everything looks good, lots of green. And then of course, if you look below, you'll see that your application's in review, and this is actually the place you're going to go to on March 15th. So once the decision release day is, you're going to go to the view details and view your status, either accepted, not accepted, or waitlist. Next slide. So kind of go over some overall tips that we have. Apply and complete early. Early is kind of subjective, I guess. But what I mean by that is you want to get your documents in and kind of get your application submitted on the earlier side, because I will tell you, a lot of people wait to the deadline, and that's fine. It's not that it won't get reviewed. It's just it's a little stressful because we get a backlog of documents to process, and so that's when the 10 business days will really start to take an effect. We receive almost like half of our transcripts in the last week because human nature, we like to procrastinate. But so definitely, if your stuff is ready to go, have it in now. I always say like a good time frame to get everything done would be around January 15th, because it's beating ahead of the game with the last minute completers. Remind your letter writer the application deadline. I would say you can tell them an earlier one, but it is kind of listed on the request. So, but you can just let them know like, hey, I'm trying to get it in early. If you wouldn't mind, maybe trying to get submitting that a week early for me. Remember, don't send us transcripts Don't send me screenshots of of unofficial transcripts. It's got to be sent in officially from your institution and their service. Check your application status. Please do. Don't just submit it and expect it to be up there. Unfortunately, humans, we process things, we make mistakes. So it's on you to stay on top of your status and check in with us. And, if it's been past the 10 business days since it's been marked, definitely give us a call to kind of see where we are. Also, this is a reminder that just because you request your transcripts, let's say it's February 4th and you contact your school to request your transcript, that does not mean that they will actually get that sent out on February 4th. Some registrars have like a 3-day business processing time, right? So just know your institution's processing times, try to get that requested before the deadline so it gives it enough time for it to be sent out. Of course, always reach out if you have questions, email us or call us. Next slide. To touch back on the admission decisions, I guess I probably wasn't as clear as before. On March 15th, this is the decision day, right? You will log into the view your application, go to the view details section that I just showed you earlier. Go to the bottom of the page and you will see your decisions there. You have 2 full business days to accept an offer or confirm your spot if you are selected. So this is why no waitlist changes will happen before March 19th. After the 19th, you could see a status change. It's really important though, if you are accepted to a site and you're waitlisted to another site, you have to make a decision if you're going to go to that one or not. If you do not confirm your spot, you will be pulled out. You won't be pulled out of the waitlist, but you will be pulled out for an acceptance at that site and risk your chances. So you do have to make a decision on that. After the March 19th, that's when you could see a change if you're waitlisted. If you confirm at a site, you will be pulled out of the waitlist too. So we will send more communications on this once the date comes up again to refresh your memory on all this. But just know if you're accepted on March 15th, you have 2 business days. If you're waitlisted, you won't see any changes till after the 19th. And then of course, if you're waitlisted, it's after the 19th. You have to check it each day until you see a change. Next slide. I think I am finished, so I will pass it on to our lovely intern, Alessio Barca.
Perfect. Well,
Oh, sorry, Tony.
no, you're good, you're good. As a matter of fact, let's let Alessio introduce himself. Alessio, he's an alum of the SHPEP program. I don't want to take too much of the shine, but Alessio, do you mind introducing yourself? And you know what? Actually share a little bit about your journey if you don't mind.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tony, and thank you, Stephanie, for that amazing walkthrough. So, for those of you that don't know me, hi everyone. My name is Alessio Barca. I am currently an intern here with SHPEP, working on communications and outreach strategies with the National Program Office. I actually participated in SHPEP at the University of Florida back in the summer of 2020, so my experience was fully virtual. But throughout this conversation, I'm still going to try to relate it as much to what you guys may actually experience in person at one of the program sites if you happen to participate throughout the program. Um, I After I participated in SHPP, I really believed in the mission of the program and what it was doing for its participants. So I decided to become an ambassador for the program. I was actually a student at the University of Florida, so I ended up participating in a lot of on-campus events, kind of raising awareness about SHPP, connecting with our pre-health advisors to not only set up those presentations, but also blast emails about SHPP on the pre-health listservs, just really try to gain as much momentum within my school. But my involvement actually extended outside of my own campus as an ambassador too. Thankfully, I got to participate in some webinars like at schools at the University of Maryland, or also some national webinars that the National Program Office was putting on, just to speak about my experience and what someone could expect by participating with SHPP. After my first year, or first 2 semesters, I guess you could say, as an ambassador, my involvement kind of extended. I actually became a member of the National Alumni Advisory Board for the program, where I eventually became the chair of the one of the scholarships that we offer through SHPEP called the PAMI Scholarship, or officially known as the Rubens J. PAMI's Opportunity Fund. So I currently still hold that role as chair of the scholarship, and it's something that you all would be eligible for if you happen to participate in the program and complete the 6 weeks and then gain that official alumni status. And it really has just been such a it has offered such a trajectory for me to not only professionally develop myself, but also personally. I mean, I've gotten to network with such incredible minds and experts in their field that have really offered me a lot of guidance and advice in terms of how to actually pursue medicine. I think that's something I forgot to mention initially. I was in the medical pathway. Um, and even though I wasn't fully cemented in that pathway, SHPP like kind of showed me the other pathways that I could pursue, and that kind of really solidified that medicine was the right one for me. So after the 6 weeks, it really just was all upwards from there. I always like to tell people that this isn't really only a 6 week program because there's so much more that can come into your life after that. I mean, again, the people you'll meet, the resources you'll have, and the network that you gain can really make the difference between am I able to pursue this path? You know, am I going to make it to the point of applying to medical school or not? So that's just a little bit about my journey. And yeah.
And it's been a fantastic journey, to be honest with you. I've been able to see Alessio grow from his time when he was a scholar to even now, like helping to lead communication and outreach efforts here at the National Program Office. And he's been tremendous and he's done tremendous work. So I definitely want to give you your flowers, Alessio. You know, a lot of hard work went into your path, and I'm very proud of you. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about your SHPEP experience because I know you mentioned you were interested in medicine, right? So, how did SHPEP help you develop a deeper understanding of medicine and why you're interested in it?
So one of the great things about the program is that you're not only kind of you don't get pigeonholed into your own pathway. You really do get exposed to all other pathways that are out there. So just to talk a bit about how the program worked for me in a virtual format, we would typically start our mornings off with academic enrichment sessions. So we would have faculty members from the University of Florida come in and speak to us about subjects like biology or chemistry, genetics, anatomy, really kind of exposing us to those different subjects or areas of study that you'll encounter on your pathway, not only to medicine, but really to almost any health profession that's out there. And then in the afternoons, we would transition more to panel style discussions. And these could either be from physicians or physician assistants, veterinaries, veterinarians, sorry, nurses, public health specialists. So you really do get a sort of comprehensive look into what each of the health professions are doing. And in each session, I wasn't really just passively observing. I was kind of trying to take in as much information as I could and try to relate it to what my goals were going into the health professions. I myself really are at that point. I knew that I would want to work with underserved populations, you know, originating from a Hispanic country and having a Hispanic background. I knew that going into healthcare, I wanted to find opportunities that would allow me to pay it forward to those communities, right? I wanted to figure out ways to get involved with them and improve their health. But I found that the way I wanted to improve their health was really in a systematic sort of way and also on a patient by patient cases or a patient by patient basis, right? So I wasn't sure which pathway was going to be the best for me, but after sort of listening into those panel discussions, the one that really did end up resonating with me was medicine. I mean, after seeing and hearing physicians speak about the autonomy that they have over the care of their patients and how they can also be involved in broader systemic changes through research efforts, that can later be linked to public policy efforts. It really just showed me the impact that physicians can have not only on patients, but also communities and global health overall. So I ended up feeling really empowered after the 6 weeks. I mean, I would sit in sessions where I saw people who looked like me, who spoke the same language as me. And typically, you know, you enter your college campus, and that might not always be the case. So you can be filled with a sense of imposter syndrome, as people like to call it, right? You don't really feel like you may fully belong in that space, but seeing your fellow scholars within those spaces, knowing that each one of them is equally capable as you are of breaking it into this field and not only, becoming a physician, for example, but also being a very successful one. It was it was a huge motivational factor, but also just seeing these experts that were very established in their own field and seeing the impact that they had already had, it kind of makes you envision yourself in their shoes, right? Envision yourself wearing that white coat, providing that care to the patients that you care the most about. So it was just overall such an empowering experience, but that network, those friendships that came out of it really only grew in strength past the point of the program. I mean, again, the 6 weeks is really only the beginning.
And to imagine you did this program virtually, right? Like, the impact that it's had on your journey and even your career trajectory, it's astounding. I guess I'm curious, right? Like, because I know you're involved in a lot of different initiatives at the AAMC now, especially with SHPEP. You're you're on our National Alumni Advisory Board, and you found a way to kind of pay it forward. I guess, I want to talk a little bit more about like the involvement and how did you go about that, right? Like how did because I know participating virtually, there's this sense that, hey, you know what, maybe I wasn't able to build those networks and build those, connections. And now you're doing a lot of different things. So if you could speak to that part of your journey, I think that would be great for the audience to hear.
So one thing I will say is that you should never be scared. Like if you really do want to get more involved, if you feel very passionate about the program and its mission and what it's doing for students all over the country, really put yourself out there. Don't be scared to send that email. Don't be scared to make that phone call, kind of asking people or asking, for example, people in the National Program Office or other alumni who are very involved in the program. Don't be scared to reach out to them asking how you can get involved. I'd say the first step, if you really want to go down that route, is to become an ambassador for the program, because that's when you really start kind of working to pay it forward, right? You represent SHPP in a more in-depth manner. You learn a lot about the program and you learn how to communicate what it's doing with other people, maybe not just in your campus, but could be potentially all over the country. So again, if you really do want to get more involved, apply for the ambassador program right after you complete it. Send that email to faculty members that you may have met during your time at SHPP, asking if you like, for example, I myself at the University of Florida met some faculty virtually and I wanted to shadow them, right? So if you are in the same position where you attend a program site that it happens to be your home institution or happens to be close to where you currently go to the university, you can reach out to these physicians, ask them if you, or physicians, or again, anyone in any of the other pathways. I'm just speaking with respect to my own experience. Don't be scared to reach out to them asking if you can shadow, or if that faculty member happens to do research, don't be scared to ask them if you can maybe stop by the laboratory, check out some of the work that they're doing, and maybe even become a research assistant within their own laboratory. You really have to create your own opportunities. They're not always just going to passively come to you. So you have to actively put yourself out there, and it can be a bit scary, right? Navigating this sort of space, thinking, I may not be fully capable of doing this, or I may not deserve this, but you really do, right? Like you became a part of this program for a reason, and these faculty members that participate in the program, they do that that's volunteer time for them. They really do care about the mission of the program, so they're willing to put in as much time and effort as they can to help the scholars succeed. And that even goes to also not just the faculty that participate during the 6 weeks, but also to the alumni that extend far out, that have already been very established in their careers, right? I mean, SHPP is celebrating its 35th anniversary today. That means that people that participated in the previous iterations of the program, let's say 20, 25, 30, even 30 years ago, these are people that are already very, very well established in their careers and they're extremely successful. If you happen to get more involved in the program, you will eventually meet some of these people. You will have opportunities to network with them, get their contact information, and they can open up a lot of doors for you throughout your pathway, right? Not just to mentorship opportunities, but even job opportunities. Um, one of the jobs that I currently also have, besides my work at the AMC, happens to be at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center here in Boston, where I was able to connect with a lot of physicians in the area who happen to be doing some groundbreaking research. And I was able to get connected with the laboratory that I currently work at here in Boston because of an alum of SHPEP, that happens to be already an emergency medicine physician. So really, again, don't be scared to put yourself out there and create your own opportunities because they're not always just going to passively come towards you.
Wow, I can tell this program has such a tremendous impact on you. And I'm going to go on ahead and bring Stephanie into the conversation as well, because I think this will give us a great opportunity to, open it up for the audience. Let's start looking into the Q&A if there are any questions that are there that we ultimately want to answer and go through. And um, I'm going to go through some of the questions right now. Um, Stephanie, was there anything you wanted to touch on first before I go into the Q&A?
Uh, you mean as in the questions?
Well, not just the Q&A, but did you have like maybe an additional question or something else that before we jump right into it?
Oh, no, we can jump in.
So I'll touch on this one right. Well, I'll go ahead and ask this one out to you, Stephanie. What does the provided travel assistance look like? Is it partially covered, fully funded, or does it depend?
So it depends on the program site. Most of them have, sometimes they have a cap at like 500. It's a really great question to ask the three program sites that you could be applying to get the fuller picture. Some will do case by case too. So it's really just dependent. They really try to work with you because the goal of the program is for you not to spend any money, or to be reimbursed if you have to buy in advance a flight or something like that. So again, it kind of just depends on each program site and what they do. But the only expense I've ever heard of a scholar having to pay was, I think it was like health insurance, and it was offered at the site at a discount rate. But no, I mean the cost of, when we say free program, we mean free program, like we cover it. So to answer the question again, just go ahead and reach out to each of the program sites that you are going to be applying to get the best picture of it.
Perfect. I see questions about the letter of recommendation and how many they should submit. I'll go on ahead and answer that now. They should only be submitting one letter of rec. But let's touch into letter of recommendations right now. And I do see a question right here that says, does it need to be from a science or math course professor? Maybe a lab assistant, like, or could it be from a communications class instructor? I'll preface my answer by saying get the strongest letter that you can get that's going to speak to.
Uh-oh. Did he freeze?
Can you hear me
Um,
now?
uh-oh.
Am I back? Am
Yeah, you're back. You
I'm
you
back.
froze.
Okay.
Um,
Um, Yeah, so I'm trying to pick up where I froze, so apologies. But essentially, I was just emphasizing the question, like, who could really write the letter? But I'd rather hear like Alessio and his journey on how he chose his letter writer, how that conversation went, and then I'd like for Stephanie to touch on the like logistical part, like as far as like different types of people that we can consider for you to write the letter of rec.
So I applied to SHPP my freshman fall, right? I had just started at the University of Florida in the fall of 2019. And thinking about who was going to write my letter of recommendation was kind of like a scary realization, right? I mean, most of the classes I was taking that semester were those big lecture hall introductory classes with like 300 students, and sometimes you feel like you can maybe show up to office hours, but there's so many people there that you don't really get to build a sort of relationship with the professor. So I ended up pivoting and I decided that I was not going to ask any of my professors for a letter of rec just because I feel like I hadn't been able to develop any sort of relationship with them during that first semester that I had. So thankfully, the University of Florida had this program for freshmen who were just starting called the Minority Mentorship Program. And so they had this process where you just filled out some information about yourself and they ended up matching you with a mentor who helped you transition into, your new sort of identity as a college student, especially at such a big school like UF. Um, so I ended up meeting with this mentor of mine who actually worked at the Disability Resource Office at UF. So he wasn't a faculty member, he wasn't a professor, he was simply a mentor who was kind of helping create more resources for disabled students at the University of Florida. But it was awesome because he was also Hispanic, so we kind of shared this cultural background that was able to really kind of form a connection between us. So over time, I really got to know him. He really got to know me. So it only felt appropriate that he would be the best person to write my letter of recommendation because no one else in my university really knew me to that extent yet. So I ended up asking him to write me the letter of recommendation. He was very happy. And sometimes your letter writer is just going to ask you for some information about yourself. They may ask you to share your personal statement with them, because that can kind of help really give them an idea of why you want to go into this program, what you may gain out of it, and some of the skills that can kind of show that you're prepared to participate in this program and perhaps, later pursue a career in the health professions. So I would say try to have your personal statement ready before you ask your letter writer for the letter of recommendation. It doesn't have to be perfect, it can be a first draft, but just have something for them to get an idea of what they could write about. If maybe perhaps if they don't even fully know you that well, sending them your personal statement can really help them get to know you on a more personal level and give you a better idea of why it is that you want to do this in the first place. And like Stephanie mentioned earlier, just be very timely with everything, follow up with your recommender, make sure that this is something they're still willing to do because I've heard some horror stories of letter writers just dropping out of writing the letter a couple of days before the deadline. So you really don't want to be in that position. So yeah, just communicate as much as you can. And again, your letter writer does not have to be your professor, but if you really aren't sure if this person qualifies as someone who can write it, just give the National Program Office a call or an email and they can definitely help you out. Stephanie, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Did a good job covering.
Perfect. So, Stephanie, can we go a little bit into like selecting the sites? Like, I think there's a little bit of confusion. Can they apply up to 3 sites? Like, if they do MSIPI and SHPEP, if you could clear that up for us, I think that'd be great.
So this is considered a joint application now, meaning you have the ability to apply to an MSIPI site and SHPEP on the same app. The maximum is 3. It doesn't matter if you pick 3 SHPEPs, 2 MSIs, and 1 SHPEP. It counts as that is your application, the max you can apply to. And there was I saw on the thing, there was a little confusion on which sites accept freshmen, sophomores, which sites accept sophomore, juniors. Just so if you are a sophomore, you have all the sites to choose from. Of course, it depends on the health profession too, right? But let's say you're interested in medicine and you're a sophomore, you could potentially apply to 3 out of all, 13 options on the application. If you're a freshman, you have 9. If you're medicine. So you really need to know which pathway you're interested in. Use that filter option on the website for SHPEP. Check out the MSI to see what's available. And then juniors, if you're a junior, you have 2 sites that you can apply to, provided it is a health profession you want to do. So, did I think I clarified that, Tony?
I think you did an amazing job with that. And sorry if I messed it up on my end for sure.
Oh, no.
I was a little all over the place.
It's a little confusing. It's not the easiest. And there was, this year is the first time SHPEP's accepting juniors. So that's what the pilot comment was. It's just if you're a freshman, you wouldn't be eligible for Rutgers or Western at this time. Once you're a sophomore, if you don't get in this year and you're a freshman, you apply again as a sophomore, then yes, you would be able to apply to Western or Rutgers.
So I see a question here, and I'd like all of us to kind of chime in on it, right? So it says, if I come from a pretty representative group in healthcare, but I submit a compelling personal statement about how I assist marginalized communities in medical education, do I still have a chance to get in? And I will say that, if anyone is eligible to apply to this program, right? I do want to start out by saying that, but I'm curious to hear from Stephanie first and then Alessio, just to chime in.
Sure. As you said, anyone can apply. We always say, why not? Just it's a free application. Go ahead and shoot your shot, right? I think yes, the personal statement is heavily weighed on it. So if you do submit a compelling one, the sites will be looking at that. You can also kind of touch base with the sites too to kind of see what kind of applicant they are looking for to help with your decision. But I say you might as well take some time and just do it. There are questions on the application about, your background, and it's also like something to remember too. This is rural applicants are eligible to apply for this as well. Do you live like an hour away from a hospital? Like these are all like factors in considering when you're writing your personal statement on what can inspire you to become a health profession in your area.
Yeah, I think Stephanie did a great job in touching on the fact that underrepresentation and disadvantage can come in many different ways, right? It can be, you can show diversity by, demonstrating that you speak another language, right? That maybe not a lot of people speak, or maybe that some patients in this country don't really meet a lot of providers that may speak that language, right? Like Stephanie said, you may be from a rural area, you may be economically disadvantaged. There really are a lot of different ways that you can approach this. If you don't happen to identify with any of those groups in your personal statement, if you don't happen to identify with any of those groups and you're still doing work out there in your community, helping patients that maybe may come from marginalized or underrepresented populations, speak about your motivations for why you want to do or why you chose to do that in the first place, right? These program sites, when they're reading your personal statement, they really want to get into your brain, into your mind, and understand why you're doing the things that you're doing. What are your motivations? What inspires you? What vision do you have for yourself? And again, why are you doing these sorts of activities? So I would really try to take a deep dive into that and just do a lot of self-reflection before you write your personal statement, because that's really what's going to make it unique and stand out.
Perfect. And touching on personal statement, is it better to write more of a general statement that applies to like the three choices that you're applying to? Or should someone like list the location that they are applying to in their personal statement? So I guess the question is like, what can program sites see when they see the application? So like, say if I'm applying to Columbia, can they see in my personal statement that I wrote maybe Howard University, for example? So I'll turn that part over to Stephanie, and then I'll turn it over back. We can popcorn to Alessio so he could touch on like personal statement tips.
Sorry, Tony, can you repeat the question? I was answering something.
Sorry. So I definitely want so more so as far as personal statements, like I guess what can the program site see, right? Can they see like if I wrote like if I apply to Columbia, Howard, and let's say UCLA, for example, right? Can UCLA see that, hey, you know what, I listed Howard University in my personal.
Okay, sorry, I understand. So you have one application, you can choose up to 3 sites. Each application will be reviewed independently. They have no idea what site the other sites you apply to, which is a great advantage for you. Because that means that you can potentially get accepted to all 3, which would be amazing, right? So on that decision day, if you get accepted to multiple sites, you have to choose which one you want to go to. Now, unless you actually write that in your personal statement, like I would love to go to like Columbia, then yeah, they're gonna find out because they read the same personal statement. And this is also what I touched base on earlier. If you're interested in multiple health professions and you're applying to different sites under those. So again, like let's say Columbia Medical, Howard Dental, and maybe one other as medical. Just make sure you kind of touch base on why you want to potentially be to work in medicine or potentially work in dental and tie those in together so that each program site is reviewing your app and could see that like, oh, I'm a dental dean, I'm reading this, cool. They're interested in both. So again, it doesn't matter if you want to apply to different health professions or to stick to medicine, it doesn't, or whatever one you're interested in, that's fine. But just make sure you write a good essay explaining that. But don't mention the sites. Because yeah, it's reviewed independently.
Yeah, I'll agree. Definitely don't mention the sites in your essays. Just kind of speak more about your own journey. I wouldn't make the entirety of your essay about one specific institution or school. Again, these programs really want to find out more about you and your journey, not more about themselves, stuff that they may already know, right? And in terms of just more general tips for the personal statement, one of the things that I really liked doing when I was putting together my medical school applications was just doing like a 10-minute free writing session, right? Don't worry about grammar, don't worry about sentence structure, just sort of take 10 minutes to write as much as you can, kind of just brain dump, and then go polishing it from there, right? Fix the grammar, cut out any sections that may not be fully relevant, or polish some sections that may be more true to your own story and really make them stand out, make them powerful, make them engaging. And then in terms of having others review your personal statement, I would say have some close friends read it, or maybe one of your professors or English teachers that you may have had during high school, but also have someone that doesn't know you very well or doesn't know you at all review it, right? Because that's basically the position that you will be in when these the administrators or the representatives from the program sites review your applications, right? This is their first glance into your journey and your mind. So having some sort of neutral third party that doesn't really know much about you read your personal statement can actually be more beneficial for you than someone that knows you very well giving you feedback on your personal statement. So really try to explore both avenues whenever you're fully polishing and finalizing your draft.
Thank you so much. And I know we're coming up at time, right? So I do have two questions left, and then we're gonna close up shop for the evening. And the first question I have is for Stephanie, and they focus on post-submission changes. What parts of the application can we alter or change post-submission? Can I update my personal statement? Can I update my working activities? What can I do and what can't I do?
Okay, so there's two things you can change after you submit your application. One, let's say you get married, you change your name, you can update that. And you can update your contact information. The first page, it's called like personal information, I believe. And then you can update your letter of your recommender, your letter writer, provided we have not received it already. So if you start out with one guy, you submit the request to this professor, they turn it in for you, and then 2 months later or a month later, it's whatever the time may be, and you're like, actually, I should have got this person, and we have it, you cannot update it. Until then, though, yes, those are the two things. Your personal statement, everything else, it's solid. It's in there. When you get to that last page, we have several reminders saying, hey, you can't change your sites. You can't update your app after this. It's final. All submissions are final. Minus those two things.
Perfect. And Alessio, I have a question for you. Could you speak about some of the activities you included in your application and, which ones did you think were meaningful to add to the application and which ones did you think, hey, you know what, maybe this isn't a really good one for the application?
So I will say that I did thankfully start getting involved during my first semester in both things that had to do with medicine, but also things that didn't have to do with medicine. I remember the two that stood out the most was that I became a member of the American Medical Student Association, my first semester at the University of Florida. So through that, I was thankfully able to participate in some volunteering events that, were closely related to what I wanted to do and how I got to speak with some physicians already through that organization that kind of started giving me perspective on why it would be a good idea to go into this field or how I could, exert an impact on my communities by doing so. But I also included an activity that spoke about how I was in an a cappella group my freshman fall of college, right? Just kind of showing my passion for music also from the beginning. I think it can really add a nice, unique, and personal touch to your application. So try not to focus solely on, the things that you're doing extracurricularly that focus directly on healthcare, but also just touch upon the things that you like to do in your free time, right? Like, what are your hobbies? What are you interested in? Really give it that personal touch.
Perfect. And Stephanie, just to follow up on that, can students include high school activities into their application?
It is supposed to be post-secondary, but we understand that especially some of our first year freshmen may not have a lot of things to go on, so you can add some to kind of make your application a little more complete and show that you have doing interests and other things outside. So yes, it's okay. Totally
Perfect.
understand.
Perfect. And, for Alessio and Stephanie, any final thoughts, any final piece of advice, any words that you want to share with everyone on the call tonight?
Um, I can just stress again, check your application, make sure you remember that it's an Eastern deadline. There was a lot of questions we didn't get to answer tonight, so you can definitely follow up with our center. We can take some of these questions. Just if you have any more after this, of course, if we haven't answered everything. So, and I do believe, Tony, we probably will have some office hour check-ins later on in January. So you can come back in and ask anything that's still pending if you haven't found the answer yet too.
I'll add and say that if your institution has pre-health advisors, definitely go ahead and, use those resources that you have. Sometimes they can reveal things that you may not know about yourself or why you're interested in this pathway. And they can really help you put those things into words, into writing in your personal statement. And they can offer some really good advice that, will help you get to where you want to be. So I'll say that definitely use that resource if it's available to you in your institution.
My advice to everyone tonight is understand you belong in places, even when you see no one that looks like you. This program will help you understand that, and you'll see people who come from different diverse backgrounds that have had different experiences, maybe in rural communities, maybe in more major metropolitan areas, because diversity is more than just race and religion. It's, geographic diversity, like Alessio was saying, the way we walk, the way we talk, the difference in our opinions and our ideas and what we believe in. I think it makes for better health outcomes, regardless of whichever background you come from, that you want to help somebody else. And really, yeah, that's my advice to everyone. Understand you belong in these spaces, and even when people around you tell you no, you say yes. And I think that's the perfect way to close. Thank you very much. Our webinar will be recorded and posted on YouTube within a week of the live viewing. And Stephanie, if you had any last final words, I definitely want to toss it over to you. But
Oh,
if
sorry, you said exactly what I was going to say because we had a couple questions about the slides. We don't send the slides, but we will have this on YouTube.
perfect. Well, good evening, everyone, and I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye.